All right. So this is going to be talking about a little concept, a little theory I thought of after an interaction I had years ago. There was this coworker I used to um, associate with, and this is when we were first getting cool. He used to work in the Cabernet aisle. Cool guy, older, baby boomer generation. And we used to just exchange, little pleasantries. Hey, how you doing? How was the weekend? Did you see the game? Very surface level, very tame. And so, one day I'm going past them and going past this section, and I ask him, "Hey, man, how was your weekend? What did you do?" And he said, um, "I it was a good weekend. It was chill." He didn't say chill. He said another word, but then he said, "Actually, I was a little self-destructive." And I was like, oh, okay, huh? A little self-destructive. I was like, what? And it broke the social script. Usually it's, hey, how was your weekend? Oh, I had to do some yard work. Hey, how was your weekend? Oh, it's the anniversary with the missus, and we went out to this fancy restaurant, and the appetizers were too small and they weren't priced right, but she had fun, so it was all great. Hey, how was the weekend? The kids came over, from college, and we had a great time. We went out to eat, and hey, how was the weekend? I went to see a concert. Have you heard of such and such? Oh, they're good. You got to check them out. No, that wasn't any of that. He broke the script. He said, "Hey, I was a little self-destructive." And so me, I knew, like, I had to ask, if you don't mind me asking, what does that mean? What do you mean you were a little self-destructive? And he goes, well, I can tell you exactly. He says, I was downstairs, I was watching TV, and I had about 3 or 4 beers while I'm watching. He says, I can't tell you what I was watching. I don't even remember it, but I was engaged at the time, which I find that fascinating, just as a side note, that we're able to like be engaged in something at the time, but then later when we're asked to recall it, we're like, huh? What? I actually don't remember quite. It's like fascinating how the mind works like that. But getting back to the topic, he said, had 3 or 4 beers. I was watching something on TV, and then I had some dinner, and he said he had like a roast or something, and he said he had the wine while he was making the roast, right? So he popped a little white Chardonnay, and he's sipping on that, drinking that while he makes the roast. And then, when the roast is complete, now he breaks out another bottle. He breaks out his Cabernet, and he's eating the roast and drinking the cab with that. And then, afterwards, has a few more beers, right? Maybe a couple of IPAs he pops, and then finishes off with like 2 glasses of whiskey. And, he says, I was just a little self-destructive, right? And I'm like, whoa, that was, yeah, that's a toll on the body. And I walk away, having a little bit more respect for him, to be that open, right? Because Lord knows you don't have to be that open with what you're saying, and it kind of deepened our friendship and stuff, and I saw that he was real, and he saw I was real in certain aspects, but I started thinking though, man, that guy's crazy. Wait, is he? Haven't I been a little self-destructive at times? Like, I have to be at work at a certain time, but I end up going out and spending money I don't have and drinking, or maybe, for some people, self-destruction is a little self-destruction. That's the key word. I want to preface that as a key: a little self-destructive, not a crash out. I think a crash out is completely different. I think I can do a whole theory on the crash out itself. I think it's in a separate category. But to be a little self-destructive, right? maybe you, I said it's the little stuff. It's maybe you meant to eat a little bit of chips and you're already watching your weight, and then you end up finishing the bag of chips, and then you say screw it, and now you're having ice cream too, and you're just writing it off as a loss. For some people in the gym, it's overtraining, right? That's a little self-destructive. Um, you're supposed to do X amount of sets, but you go above and beyond, and you're really pushing yourself in that moment, overly so, right? Like past your limits. There's pain involved. There's something that's damaging the body, or damaging the self, the psyche. Um, so a little self-destructive. And I said to myself, well, I've done that. I'm pretty sure we've all done that, right? And for the most part, the rhetoric is, you know, you view it as a shameful event, right? Oh man, I let myself go. Oh man, I was a little self-destructive. I let that happen. And you shame the event. It's a shame that comes with that because you don't want to do it again. And then you resolve not to do it again. I will not be a little self-destructive like that. I will get back on the roadmap. I will get back on track. I will continue as I need to. And for the most part, I agree with that. But I disagree on one take. I don't think there should be shame attached to being a little self-destructive. I want to actually look at it from a different lens. I think, and we just vibe with me for a second. Some of you guys are gonna be like, "What are you talking about? What are you getting at?" But just vibe with me for a second, just for a moment. I think sometimes being a little self-destructive is almost like a revolutionary impulse. And what I mean by that is when you look at revolutions or revolutionaries, right? Um, a lot of times it's marked by deviance, right? There's a social order, there's a way of going about things, there's a track that one must follow to be the law abiding citizen, whatever the case may be. And then the revolutionary is they break from that. In that moment, they're breaking, right? And even at the moment too, that maybe they're not even called revolutionaries. They're called, bad actors, looters, social deviants, right? The mob. They're given all these different monikers, but the key is that they are breaking away from the routine, from what's expected of them. And so to tie it all back in, what do I mean? I think we all, when we're a little self-destructive, whatever form that takes, I think that's a break from the routine that we're doing, right? And so instead of looking at the event as shame, sometimes it provides a unique perspective, a juxtaposition, if you will, to your normal course of events. And sometimes from that space of deviation, from that space of being a little revolutionary for that moment, you're able to look at your life in a different lens if you allow yourself to do that. And so what does that look like? For some people, you have that break from the routine, and then maybe you have that break because you don't like the routine, right? Maybe you see aspects of yourself that are rebelling against this life that is closed in around you, right? Maybe you no longer want to accept the role you've been given or to continue to play the part that has been handed to you or that you've accepted, right? And then other times, it can also be a way for you to reflect and say, man, I was a little reckless, but all in all, my life is okay. I like the trajectory I'm going in. I like I like the space that I'm in. I like, for the most part, the trajectory I'm heading. I like the people I've surrounded myself with. I like the lifestyle that I'm living, right? That it can also be looked at that way. It can also, that sometimes being a little self destructive, allows one to look at what they already have in their life and to not take it for granted and to say, hey, things aren't so bad, or things aren't bad at all, or man, I got this person or these people or these things in my life, and I want to cherish them. And the key is that it's a break from the routine, right? It's a perch from which you can look at what is the normalcy that you go by, and it's a way for you to reflect on it. And so I say this all to say, like obviously no one wants to be a little self-destructive, like outright, but it happens and it's going to happen. But I think the next time you find yourself being a little self-destructive, maybe instead of shaming that event and those actions, maybe we should just look at it as a break from the routine and a call to reflect. But that's just my take. I'm a little wayward theorist. That's all I am. So thank you for listening to this first video. I'm out.